Hello everybody and welcome to Bee Buzz. My name is Dave and I'll be your beekeeper for the day. Today we're at Bays Mountain Park and we're talking to people about bees and the importance of our bees. For a few minutes today I just want to talk about the meaning of life according and through the eyes of a bee. So I want to talk about our bees that are within the hive. There are three different types of bees. There's a queen bee, worker bee, and a drone bee. So each one has a specific purpose for being in the hive. Today I'm just going to focus on the queen bee and the drone bee. The queen bee, there's only one of those in the hive. And if we look at this picture here we have, this is where we'll keep the queen bee located, in the brood chamber. This is the home of the queen, the workers, and the drones. So they live here in this part. This is where she'll lay her eggs. Now she can lay up to 2,000 eggs a day. And the reason she lays 2,000 eggs a day, we're going to discuss that here in just a few minutes. So when we're looking at the bees, if you have 30 days in a month, and she's laying 2,000 eggs a day, she does this in the spring and the summer, then you have 60,000 bees in a month. You'd have 120,000 in 2 months, 180,000 in 3 months, and so on. But why does she lay so many eggs in a day? We're going to look at that today. So with her, there is a purpose for that. We're going to go to the worker bees. The worker bees are interesting. Those are the main parts of the bees in the hive. They have 2,000 again that she's laying a day. A worker bee lives 42 days. And during the 42 days that she lives, she has two different functions. 21 days are spent in the hive, 21 days are spent outside the hive. If we look at this chart that we have, we can begin with their life of the worker bee. And she starts with housekeeping, days 1 through 3. A worker's first job is to clean out old cells for honey or eggs. If we move on, we can see that then she feeds nectar and pollen and royal jelly to the larvae. So their stages are egg, larvae, and then they go to the pupa and then they hatch out. So we can see that they do this 1,300 times. They check this about 1,300 times every day. From there, they go on to attending the queen. The queen itself does not have a tongue. So the queen has to be fed by the worker bees. So days 7 through 12, they go ahead and they feed them. If we look up here as well, we can see also that they are undertaker bees. These young workers remove dead bees from the hive. Then they fan the hive to keep circulation. The hive has to stay approximately at 90, 93 degrees, 92 degrees. So they're keeping that hive at a certain temperature. So they fan it during the summer to keep it cool, and they cluster together during the colder times to keep it warm. From days 18 to 21, they're guard bees. They want to make sure that no one gets into the hive that shouldn't be in the hive. And going back down here, they store the groceries, if you will. They take nectar and pollen returning field bees from the returning field bees and store it away in the cells of the comb. So these are some of the jobs that they're doing inside the hive. This is days 1 through 21. So again, they're living 42 days. So now we want to look at the rest of their life, what they're doing from days 21 to 42. So if we come over here, we can see the field bees, they're going to work. They spend the last half of their lives collecting nectar, pollen, and water. And then they build and produce wax also during days 12 through 35, if we need any in the hive itself. So the bee itself, when it goes for those 21 days in the hive, every day, 10 or more trips it takes outside the hive to gather in pollen and nectar and water for the hive. And it works 50 to 100 flowers, if not more, every time that it goes out of the hive. And every time it comes back, of course, the other bees take that and they go right back out in the field. The reason they only live 42 days is because they wear out their wings. They can fly 500 miles. So once they have worn out their wings, then they're no longer able to fly and the bee no longer is able to survive. And during this time, they have worked all this time bringing in all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, there's no more of the bee. And to what they have done, let's look. This is a pint of honey. So how much honey do you think a bee brings in its lifetime? A pint? A quart? No, less than that. And we'll show you how much they actually bring in. Maybe this much honey in their lifetime. But that doesn't stop the bee from bringing in honey, and that doesn't stop them from doing what they're doing. So I want to look at this and compare this to something out in just a moment. So we'll be right back in just a second to show you how we can relate this to something that maybe we can do. All right, so we're back, and to finish up with the bees, they bring in about a teaspoon of honey, maybe during their lifetime. Why do they bring in a teaspoon of honey? What's the importance of that? Well, it's without that teaspoon of honey, the hive will never make it to the winter. So they are working for a generation of bees that they will never see. They are bringing it in so the hive will survive throughout the year and ongoing, because there's a winter coming when there will be no nectar or pollen or anything to gather. So those bees know that importance. I want to compare that today to something that I do each week. So I take these plastic bottles. I've got 18 of them in here, and I recycle them every week. Not a lot compared to how many they're actually made. Took some statistics. 481 billion bottles were used worldwide in a single year, and that's from 2018. And that equates out to 40 billion plastic bottles were used each month, 1.3 billion plastic bottles were used each day, 54.9 million plastic bottles were used each hour, and almost 1 million plastic bottles are used every minute. So this lets us know that there is a lot of plastic being used today. And in the US itself, 500 billion plastic bottles were used each year, and the average person uses 156 plastic bottles per year. 60 million plastic bottles are thrown away each day in America, and 35 billion empty water bottles are thrown away in the US each year, with only about 12% being recycled. So are my 18 bottles making a difference? Maybe a small fraction, maybe a teaspoon of difference, but I am making a difference as far as helping out. We have a problem within our world of plastics going into rivers, going into streams, going into oceans because of people not recycling them. So by doing this small part, that to me is the meaning of life, because I'm helping out a generation that I may never see, but by helping out our planet, I believe I can make a difference in the generation that is yet to come. So remember, the bee works 21 days out in the field to gather all this honey in, but it's only a teaspoon, but it does make a difference. And what you can do for our planet can make a difference. Thank you, and keep on buzzing.